Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Area 51.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 6.
What's up, Rahul? It's been a while.
Yeah, this time it's just us guys. We don't have any cool guests
I know,
on the show.
and it's not like we are alienating anybody.
Vidyut was a great addition to episode 5. We got some great feedback. A lot of folks loved the episode. Thanks for making the time out to listen to it. And some of you actually made an effort to get some feedback across to us, which is greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Yep. And for whatever it's worth, this happens only because of the feedback we get from all of you listeners. And thank you so much for that. Whoever has been sending us, whatever feedback, it's been fantastic. And we love you folks for that.
So what have we got for this episode?
Wow, I don't know. It's not like anything eventful happened in US immigration recently, didn't it, Rahul? I feel like there's almost Hunger Games like environment right now.
Absolutely, man. Well, okay, what if we go to a theme park? Okay. And there's a crazy roller coaster ride.
Okay.
And you're like, should I get into that roller coaster ride or not? And I tell you, hey man, go for it. You've got a 17.56% chance of survival. What are you going to do?
I'm definitely not doing that.
Well, that was the odds for getting picked in last year's H1B lottery. We don't have the numbers for this year's yet. For some reason, UCIS is like, I don't want to release this number. If I do, people are going to riot out in the streets. Last year, we had 483,927 applicants.
Wow. This year it's probably going to be like at least 700K or something close to that. I think.
Before the lottery, I thought this year would be a significant low because of the fact that, a lot of layoffs. I thought a lot of companies wouldn't be in that whole hiring space. Yeah. I was telling all my friends, like, hey, this is your last try. Don't worry, man. You get it in this time. But just by the speculations and all the posts by different attorneys that I follow, it looks like it might be above 500,000 easy. Just look at it, right? So I actually got down the stats for the last 4 or 5 years. Okay. So folks, when we say the 2019 lottery, that means usually the lottery is done the previous year, right? So the 2019 H1B lottery is done in 2018, right? So for that lottery, we had 190,098 applicants. Wow. Then we went to 2020, we had 201,000. 21, 275. 22, 308,000. And wait for it, 2023, which will happen last year, we had 483,927 applicants.
Oh my God.
Percentage of getting picked went from 44% in 2018 to 17.56% last year. You can have crazy, a PhD, right? You could have found a cure for cancer, but still it boils down to dumb luck where you have close to 17% chance of getting picked. Your whole life, your whole future in the United States boils down to that. That's just mind-blowing.
I'm imagining this hypothetical scenario, okay? So there's this PhD person who's born in India, and he is probably like a chief scientist at Moderna or like Pfizer, and he pretty much like invented the antivirus, the vaccine for it, and he doesn't get picked on H1B, and since the EB1 and everything is backlogged, he has to leave the country. Yeah. Just imagine. Yeah, that's definitely possible, right?
100%. And a lot of articles that I've been seeing have been talking about the huge brain drain that US is either going through or will experience if the system is not fixed. Because people they just don't want to do it anymore. Like, we're going to see some significant brain drain going from US to Canada. Like, it's already happening.
For sure.
It's already happening.
Yep.
Their immigration system is so open, and US is going to definitely lose out on talent if they don't fix this.
It's nuts. It's nuts. So there's like one specific area I was reading about, like, and I was following on Twitter as well. A lot of these healthcare workers, like, doctors, nurses, and folks, who helped out during the COVID response, which is kudos to them, like, for doing all this work. And they're Indian citizens. They're stuck in a backlog or something, and Congress has not done anything for them. And apparently, I'm not exactly sure about how what are the specifics on this. Canada is either planning to come out or has come out with some new ruling that if you're a doctor with a valid medical license in India, you don't need to write the Canadian medical equivalency exam to start practicing in Canada.
No way. Are you serious?
So they can literally go there. If you're a doctor, you can literally go start practicing.
wow.
And that's it. Get PR.
Wow.
That's it.
Because here,
So-
I know that they've got to start from scratch. It's another 5-6 years of schooling
Exactly,
and
right?
exams to just get to your residency stage and then start practicing. So if Canada's removed that, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's going to cause a brain drain for sure. Like, we won't see those effects now. You're going
gonna
to start
hit.
seeing that
Yes.
like 5 years down the line. Like, you know, that
Because a nation
And-
built on immigrants, right? If you're going to put in such a barrier towards folks actually acclimating within the country, this is what is going to happen. But I just don't know why no one's taking any conscious effort to get this fixed, right? I mean, the number 85,000 has been fixed for a number of years, and just by reading out the number, right, you can see that the applicants are constantly increasing.
Yep.
21 to 22, there was an increase in like 175,000 applicants, but 85 magic number still remains the same.
Weird fact. Okay, so it used to be, I think, around 85K up until 99, 2000 or something. Congress then increased that up to 190,000 H1B visas.
Yep. And then the 9/11 happened.
They brought it down again.
Yeah, 9/11 happened and that changed after that. Until then, it was 190,000 or something like that.
You couldn't blame them, right? Al-Qaeda
that was-
always
yeah.
recruits on H1B visas.
I would have thought, EB, what? You need to show extraordinary talent in blowing up.
No, it's a specialty occupation. You don't find a lot of folks who blow up buildings.
Yeah, no offense to anyone.
Yeah, just the terrorists.
Yeah,
that's
just
whom
the
we're
terrorists,
trying to
yeah.
offend here.
So in today's episode, Sanjay and I thought we'd talk about alternative options that you guys could pursue if your H1B is not picked. A lot of my friends, this was their third try, and they're all disheartened and disappointed that it's not picked, and they're faced with the option of, hey, what do we do? What's our next step? And there's been a lot of immigration attorneys being proactive and putting out seminars and webinars on this. Just the other day, I attended one by Robert Weber and the founder of Open Avenues. So we just thought we'd compile a bunch of resources for you guys. We're not trying to go into a lot of detail. We're going to put it out there. You guys can look into it. If you guys want to discuss this a little bit more, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to talk to each and every one of you individually if it needs to happen like that. Because we want you to stay, we're all here to pursue the American dream, right? It's not fair that by random luck, some of us get to experience it and the others don't.
Yep.
And hopefully something good comes out of this episode and you guys learn something, or you guys are a little better educated on how to navigate what's coming or what's in store for you guys.
Yep, 100% agree. Let's assume somebody did not win the H1B lottery last month, or they haven't gotten a notification yet. What's the first best option for them if they don't have any more chances left, or their OPT or whatever status they are on is expiring pretty soon?
Got it. So we know that there's about 8 to 10 options that you could pursue. Just to make it easier, I clubbed it into 4 different umbrellas or categories, right?
Okay.
And before we get started, I just want to let you that Sanjay and I are not immigration attorneys. We found these by reading.
Spoiler alert.
We found these by reading through immigration forums and attending different webinars and talking to different attorneys. So do not take us at face value, right? Do your own research on what we tell you. It's a good starting point. But do your research, and before you do anything, talk to an immigration attorney. Shell out that couple of $100. It's worth it.
Yep.
Trust me.
Yep, exactly.
In the long, grand scheme of things, spending $1,000 on a good immigration attorney is worth it. Trust me, guys. So the first category or the first umbrella that we want to share with you guys is visa types. H-1B is not the only visa type that you can pursue to stay in US. You know what's an O-1 visa, right?
I have heard of it, but I don't know explicit details about it.
So basically, it's called an extraordinary visa, right? It's
okay.
What's an H-1B? Specialty occupation where you get picked by a random lottery. The good thing about an O-1 visa is it's granted to you based on your merit. You can apply for it any time of the year. There is no cap as to how many visas can be applied within a year. For example, H-1B is 85,000, right? We don't have any such cap for an O-1 visa. So you've got to hit about 3 criteria in that list of 8 or 9 that USCIS has put out, which include original contribution, membership in esteemed organizations. If you're asked to judge, for example, a hackathon, or if you're invited to speak in a panel showing that you're an expert in your field, that counts. If there's a newspaper article about you, if there's something published in the media, it counts. Papers. People assume that has to be an article in a journal. Does not. Exactly. Anything that's published, it could be a company standard that's being used globally within the company. Any articles like that. And national recognition. If you're employed in a critical capacity, a high salary. So you can tell that some of these are not very concretely defined, right? Like what's a high salary? What's employed in a critical capacity, right? So a good attorney helps you fix that.
Yeah, like for high salary specifically, I can talk about that. What I found out, like, based on some reading, is that you have to be in the top, you have to be in the 90th percentile, the salary band for somebody in that profession in the city that you live in. So let's say, for example, you're living in Boston, and I'm just throwing numbers here. Like, let's say civil engineers median salary is like $90,000 a year. Now, if you make $130,000 a year, that's like 1.5 standard deviation. So you're in the top 10% of people. So that can be classified as a high salary.
And does your work experience count for this? For example, you're earning 100K with like 2 years of experience as opposed to someone earning 150K with like 10 years of experience. Does that play a...
That's a good question. Maybe it's probably got something to do with the prevailing wage and things like that. So depending upon your level. Okay. So let's say the prevailing wage for a civil engineer at level 2 is something along those lines. So that's the foundational document. So it's not like, you need to earn these like tech company massive salaries of like $500,000 or $1 million to make that requirement. It's actually a very feasible thing if you have, a pretty decent job and you're paid pretty well. Yeah. I would think this particular criteria really works for folk who are living in low cost of living cities.
I was thinking about that. Yes, like some like rural like town and bringing in like 6 figures. Duh.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say you're living in Detroit, Michigan, and you're like an automobile engineer working for Ford. If you're earning like 130K, the median salary there is probably like 60,000 or something like that. So you are already, in a very good shape. And so definitely do your research and talk to a lawyer. That's one criteria that is actually possible. It's like Rahul said, these are, very poorly defined criteria. So there's a lot of wiggle room for you to work on that.
Let's look at it this way. This is a narrative that you're trying to sell to a USCIS consular officer or an agent, right? They're not extremely well-versed in all the fields, or they're not going to sit and read your research paper and say, oh, wow, he's contributed quite a bit, right? It's not going to happen.
Yep.
The narrative that you present has to be bought by that guy. And for that, you need a really good attorney who knows what he's doing. And they present that narrative saying, hey, you are extraordinary. You deserve that visa. And that guy needs to buy into that story.
Exactly. It's like you are selling yourself. Like you are selling your profile. Like, you're making it look like you are an awesome person on paper. And, obviously you need to have some qualifications and there's some basic things. Like
don't lie blatantly, right?
Yeah.
I went to Mars by myself. I mean, it has to be believable. It has to be believable. There's no 6-year cap on this. You can extend it as many times as you want based on the project. There are different types of O1 visas too, right? If you're starting your company, you're a founder of a company, you can use your business plan as evidence towards, so that you qualify for this visa. And it's not just technical. The cool thing is that there's O1 visa for artists, the performing field. So I found that pretty cool. It's not just fashion models and engineers, which is what the H1B is for.
And so, I'm going to like continue on what you were saying. This idea of an O1 for actors and artists also has another clause called an O1 agent. So you don't need to technically have an employer to get an O1 visa.
Yes.
So even if you get like a freelance contract, like you have registered US agents, companies or individuals
who can file for you,
submit,
petition.
who can file on your behalf. Because typically that's how, it works in Hollywood. Like an actor will have an agent and, and they will facilitate all of this stuff. And this particular visa was probably designed with that thing in mind, which is pretty good. Like, for example, the disadvantage of like going for an O1 through an employer is because, the O1 is held by the employer. But if you go through an O1 agent, you can actually work for multiple employers.
So that's the thing, right? You can actually, even if you're working for an employer, you can have multiple O1 visas at the same time. So unlike H1, you are allowed multiple employers on an O1. Right, you can file. You can file another O1 if you need to, like a side hustle or whatever it is. But so I found that pretty cool. And you know what? I actually have a list of celebrities who've come on O1 visas. Justin Bieber was on an O1 visa.
Wow, the Biebs. Okay.
Rihanna was on O1 visa. Adele.
Rihanna's not American.
Adele. Wow. Yeah, she's from Barbados or something.
Wow. Okay, I had no idea.
Adele came in on O1. Benedict Cumberbatch came in on O1 visa. Wolverine, Hugh Jackman came on an O1 visa.
Oh.
If a football fan, Pele came to US on an O1 visa.
Wow.
Yeah, right? It's funny when like we think immigration problems are just like problems that regular people like us face. Suddenly, when you put a celebrity's face to a visa like this, you're like, oh shit, that's so crazy.
Well, but I want to say anything. So, if anybody who's listening, you don't need to freak out that, celebrities are the only folks who can get O1 visas.
Yes.
They are taking that because that is the only visa available that fits their purpose. That doesn't make you less eligible for it just because, Adele or somebody got it.
The founder of Stripe.
Oh, Patrick Collison. Yeah.
John Collison.
Oh, John. They're twins. Or what are their brothers?
He was an O1.
Oh.
Piers Morgan came to US as an O1 for like a certain period of time.
I think even Priyanka Chopra. No, right?
I couldn't find any official data backing this. Like all these people have, I found either law firms confirming it or anything like that, but I couldn't find anything.
Oh.
She would have, logically speaking, she would have, or direct EB1. But
yeah. I mean, maybe not EB1 because I don't know. Yeah, could be.
Either one, right? I don't see any other visa class fitting her profile.
But did she move to the US before she got married to Nick Jonas?
Yes. Remember, she pursued a music career for a while.
Oh, I remember
In My
that.
City or something. There was a song.
Yeah.
Then after that, she started dating Nick Jonas, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, that's one option for you guys. O1 visa, right? The next one is an L1. So this is called an intra-company transfer US visa. Basically, what happens is that if you work for the same company, if your company has a presence in any other different country, you work in that office for at least a year. If you complete that duration, this company can petition you to get an L1 visa and bring you back to US. A friend of mine, this was a fourth attempt. She didn't get picked. So what the company is doing right now is they're pretty cool. Very supportive company. What they're doing is they're sending her to Sweden. So she's going to work in the Sweden office for 1 year. And then she's going to come back on an L1 visa. Now there are two types, L1A and L1B. L1A is for managers and other executives. And L1B is for like specialized employees. So I'm assuming we would fall under L1B. This is also what a lot of people from TCS and Infosys and all these people, that's how they come to US. They don't directly come on. If they're not picked in the H1B, they come through L1.
Catch is that it has a 7-year term limit.
And you can't switch companies.
You can't switch
which
companies.
Sucks.
Yeah. So because I know folks like who are nearing their L1 term who, had to apply for the H1B to switch and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so the L1 is a fixed term limit. It's a one-time thing. It can't be, or I think it's 3 years and the second 4 years, something like that. But it can't go beyond 7 years.
Okay. My biggest beef with the thing is this visa is that yes, it's like an option for you to continue work, but working without any option of changing jobs or employers, that doesn't quite cut it for me. I mean, need to know that there's an option for you to try a different role or a different company, or if that's not there, that kind of gets a little dull for me. But I'd definitely say it's something to look into for the time being. Come back on an L1. There's nothing stopping you from applying for your H1B lottery while you're on an L1 visa. Nothing like that. You can transfer from an L1 to an H1B if you get. So if you come on an L1, you get 6 to 7 years. In those 6 to 7 years, that's 6 to 7 attempts at 17.56%. Hopefully that becomes better, but it's decent odds, better than nothing at all.
Yep, exactly. If you work for a larger company that has an international presence, L1 is obviously the better option because not everyone is lucky enough to get employers that have that flexibility to move you out or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And and comes back to this, whatever said and done, you need to have a really good rapport with your employer, because end of the day, these are all employment-based visas, employment-based immigration, path. So whatever option you choose, there are very few categories of visas where you can self-petition yourself. And so in a way it's good, in a way it's bad. It's good for the company because they get to keep you.
Right.
It's bad for you personally because you don't have that flexibility of moving around.
Just don't burn bridges. essentially.
Yep.
You never know when you need to cash that favor in. It's very easy for an employer to say, hey, we tried, we can't do anything, goodbye. For them
Exactly.
to go that extra mile, hey,
Exactly.
we're going to talk to our counterparts in a different country. For example, let's say in this
Yeah.
case, Sweden. She'd proven herself that she was an asset, which company's like, you know what, we'll
Yep.
go this extra mile to send you to Sweden. We'll apply for your H1B when you're there. If you get picked, you come back on an H1B. If not, you come back as an L1. Just keep that in mind. And I think for students who are just about to graduate, pick your companies wisely during your OPT period. 3 years that you get as part of your OPT and your STEM extension, very important for you to build that rapport, to show that you are an asset of the company. Go above and beyond. Let them know that you are an asset that needs to be retained at the company so that they know what to do. It shouldn't be sprung on them at the last minute. You don't get picked. You're like, hey, boss, I've got a week left of the country. Can you send me to another one? They'll be like, bro, are you crazy? It
Exactly.
takes time, right? They're not going to be as invested in your case as you will be. I've said this line before. Make sure they're in the loop. They know at least 1 year prior. If your second chance does not get picked, start planning your backup. Let them know, hey, next year, April, if it doesn't happen, we need to have these backups in place. Don't do it after your third attempt is not gone well.
That's very good advice. And it's good advice for your career in general as well. It might sound very obvious, like, like a bunch of old desi uncles talking that, work hard in your job and make your employer happy. But that also does really good things for your career as a whole, because you're building good relationships, not just with your employer, but folks you work with, and they could lead you to newer opportunities that you would not have imagined otherwise. So it's definitely good advice. I absolutely recommend everyone to take that in.
So the next two on the list are not personal favorites of mine, but we'll still talk through it. Probably, maybe not in as much detail. One is country-specific visas. The H-1B is not the only visa you can get to stay in the country. If you're a Canadian or a Mexican national, doesn't mean if you need to be born there, right? If you are Indian born or any other nationality and you've got a Canadian citizenship, you are allowed to come to US and work on a TN visa. That's a treaty that US has with Canada and Mexico. You're allowed to come work as a TN visa. It's super easy to file it. You just need an offer letter from your employer. You can file for that visa by yourself. There's no limit to how many years you can. I think you get it in increments of 3, unlimited. Good option for you to try, another couple of shots at the H-1B through this. If you're someone from Australia, you've got the E3 visa, which is in 2-year increments. If you're someone from Singapore or Chile, you've got the H-1B1 visa, which is, I think, 1 year with the extension of another 1 year. And you're allowed to do that like 2 times or something.
Oh, okay.
It's, I think out of these options, the Canadian stuff is something that's feasible. You could apply for your Canadian citizenship and come back to US if you wanted to on a TN visa. So it's not something that's super useful or helpful at this moment, but it's good info to keep in your back pocket. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Like, Canada is probably closest option because a lot of US companies have some sort of a Canadian presence. And recently, I've also seen this new approach where some companies find like a payroll provider for Canada if they have not gotten the H-1B lottery, move their staff to Canada.
Oh, nice.
And that other company contracts them out to the parent company. Like, I think one of the names is Mob Squad or Mod Squad.
They just take a percentage, but the company doesn't have to worry about taxes and stuff like that.
Yep. None of that stuff.
Nice.
So I think for the company, the US-based company, it's like them hiring a contractor.
Nice.
But,
Oh, that's very smooth, because I've always wondered if your HR would be okay to go through that extra hassle of sending you to Canada and then filing your...
Well, exactly. That's the thing, right? Like, it's easier for them to do that than set up a Canadian presence and all that stuff. It's much easier for an American company to do that. And plus, another big advantage is, the time zone thing. For the most part, most companies, if you have work from home or like something like that, you want to be available in US time zones. So
it's not too bad
being
also.
In Canada,
yeah. Most of it is East. There's a lot of it is in Eastern, and it's, I think, a hour or two here and there is fine.
Exactly. So like, Toronto or Vancouver, it pretty much works on US time zones. It's the same time zone, in fact.
Nice. The next one is an E2 investor visa. If you are in countries that are part of the specific treaty that US has, you are allowed to apply for an investor visa where you invest a certain amount in the US on your company and you get this visa. Now, do not confuse this with that $800,000 that if you put into the US economy and hire 10 jobs, you get your green card. This is not that.
Yep.
This is something else. This is they haven't really listed the investment amount. I've gone through some forums. I've seen people get this after investing like $100,000, up to $100,000.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, one of the countries that I've researched on was the country of Grenada. And they have this thing called, if you invest $150,000 there, in 6 months, you are eligible for citizenship. You don't even need to live there.
Nice.
And once you get citizenship, you can get an E2 visa to the US.
But that's
now,
another 100K probably.
No, there is no specific dollar value attached to that.
Right. So I've seen a couple. I've seen up from 90 to 100. I've seen it approved. I haven't seen anything below that. I probably could, but I was reading up about this. The shitty thing is India is not part of the treaty.
Of course, obviously. All the good stuff go to the European or white people countries, right? So I think Mexico is the only one that stands out.
So that sucks for us.
Duh.
But a roundabout route, like Sanjay said, you can.
And it's not feasible for a lot of folks. Like,
so it's not place of birth, right? What if you get a Canadian citizenship and you can come back on an E2 visa?
You can come. But again, if you need to get a green card there, like, it's still, you're stuck in the queue.
Okay. No, that's fine. I mean, like a visa to come into the. So we're not.
Oh yeah.
Just to stay legally in the country and be able to work.
Yep.
Okay. So the next two are, since you're talking about green cards now, the next two are actual pathways into getting a green card. One is I'll go in increasing order. One is the EB2 NIW, right? In EB2 is, or EB3. Our green card categories that a lot of us fall into, right? EB3 if you're a bachelor's, EB2 if you have a master's with some experience. The wait times are ridiculous, and these are filed by your employers. But an NIW, which is a National Interest Waiver, means that you can self-petition an EB2 petition for yourself. So you need to show that you have an advanced degree, and you need to meet there's a bunch of criteria. You need to meet a bunch of them. Just a few off the top of my head is like a license to practice your profession. If you're a member in professional organizations, if you've got some awards, some letters and testimonials from people, industry experts, all these will give you an EB2 NIW. Now for Indians, it's just an easier way to get into the queue because you don't have to do your PERM or your prevailing wage. That you save up like 1 year, 6 months with the current wait times. But once you're in the queue, it's just a long wait. But you're not tied to an employer. It's easy for you to jump from one job to another. That's just one option for you guys to look into. It's an EB2 NIW. And
so one thing I wanted to point out in the NIW category is that until 2022, there wasn't a lot of clarity on STEM-related options. So like, science, technology, engineering, math. There would be preference given to folks in that area, but there was no clarity on what was the criteria. But in 2022, the White House came out with a ruling that stated that USCIS has to give preference to folks in STEM categories in this particular, NIW category, which makes it great because most of the folks who come here to study in the US mostly belong to the STEM category.
Right.
Another thing I wanted to point out also is that the White House last year did come out with a list called critical and emerging technologies that they feel are very crucial to the US's growth and economies and development. And there's like a lot of areas where they feel like these are really critical aspects that, people working in these fields are very crucial to the US economy. For example, things like cloud computing or artificial intelligence or biotechnology.
Is oil and gas there?
Renewable energy generation is there. And I think oil and gas is there as well, like some specialty sort of drilling and stuff like that. And so if you work in any of these categories, this is a very, very strong advantage you have to get an NIW approval. So I would recommend folks check that out. I will add it on our website as well as part of the show notes. With links to this particular list. But obviously, check with an immigration lawyer with your profile and stuff like that again. But NIW is not a bad option at this time. The only issue being is that if you are from India and as in you're born in India, getting an NIW does not necessarily mean you can still get a work authorization as far as I understand. Because if you don't have an H-1B, it's this weird spot. Like, I don't know. Like,
if you are someone who's any other nationality, rest of the world, right? If you think about this scenario, right? You are not sure where your H-1B is. So you decide to do another master's. So you are on F1. While you're doing this,
Mhm.
let's say you have some work experience and you've got a degree in, I'm going to pick cloud computing because Sanjay said that. You qualify for this. An attorney files it, and with premium processing now, with a month or two, you get your 3 to 4 months, you get your EB2 NIW approved. Right?
Mhm.
By the time your degree is done, you have your green card.
Boom. That's it.
Crazy, right? It's not like you're just taking degrees and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. You're just taking degrees. You're like, oh shit. No, that one degree and that in this petition, you're done. You're done. You have your graduation and you'll get a green card in your mail and you're set. This is a privilege for the rest of the world. You guys can definitely look into this, and another degree is what? That's fine. It's 2 years. Now your second time around, you know the tricks of the trade. You can get into a research position. Your degree is paid off. You get into an RA or something, knock that out.
Exactly.
Probably investment after all this, probably a couple of five grand or something, which is fine.
Spot on. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah. So if you are from one of these other countries, it is a fantastic option to get your green card by self-petitioning. Like you can do it by spending your own money. You don't need an employer or any of that stuff.
That's the best part.
Which earlier in the episode, like the idea, like you need to be on good terms with your employer, be nice, friendly, all that stuff, that goes away. You build a profile by yourself, spend your own money, and you get your green card, and that's it. You're good to go.
And you're avoiding the prevailing wage. You're avoiding the whole perms. You've got to see it in this way, right? Even if you get your I-140 under regular methods, you go to another company. If you're not able to port your application, you've got to start this process from scratch. That's another 2 years locked into that company. Then you want to jump again, another 2 years gone in this, right? You're bypassing all this with that NIW petition. The next one.
What was the other one?
The next one is similar to this, is EB1, the extraordinary visa. To get an EB1 right now, there's a wait time for Indians. I think it's less than a year. But
I think it's like July 2022
correct.
Or something
Until
like that.
A couple of months ago, it was current for all categories. Right? You get it. You are eligible for a visa right away. To qualify for this, they've listed down 10 criteria. You need to hit, I think, around 3 or 4 of them. Some of them are awards, membership, judging, a leading critical role, and high salary. You're going to see that there's a lot of similarity between this and O1. What people say is that if you get your O1 visa, you're pretty much halfway there to an EB1.
Yep.
When you're like putting down short-term goals or milestones for you to accomplish, right? Like try to knock out an O1 first. And by the time you've collected documentation for that, you'll see that you're very close to an EB1, and maybe a little bit more push from your end, a little bit more effort will actually get you that EB1, reach that EB1 stage, and you can actually get a green card right away. And some fun facts: John Lennon was here on an EB1.
Oh.
Yeah. You want to know who else was on EB1?
Yeah.
Our former First Lady Melania Trump was on EB1.
Wow.
She was
even another fun fact, she was on an H1B before that.
She was I think an extraordinary model. So
probably.
So she was here, and that was her pathway to citizenship, EB1.
Okay, through the EB1.
Crazy, right?
Interesting. Yeah, it is.
This requires some amount of work to do before you reach out to an attorney. It probably will take you about a year or two to collect your documentation.
Exactly.
Do your groundwork. Find a good attorney who is just as passionate and invested in you, and then build your profile, apply for it, and see what happens. It's not impossible. There will be some sleepless nights, but I think you can do it.
I don't think sleepless nights, like, one thing you need to figure out is like have a plan, and this will take at least a couple of years to build out your profile. That's what you need to have. You can initially go to an attorney and like talk to them, understand where you are right now based on your current profile, and then build it out. Like, okay, you've got another 2 years to do things to cover some of these checklist items, like judging a competition or like a critical role in an organization, those sort of things.
Right.
And once you are there, like, boom, that's it. It's not an impossible thing. Just because like famous people have gotten it, that doesn't mean anybody else can't. You just need to meet these specific criteria. So find out ways to build your profile to do that.
And a lot of attorneys and firms give you a free consultation to evaluate your profile, so you don't have to pay for that. I don't see that as a huge drain on your. The only thing that you're going to be spending is time. get that free evaluation, see where you're lacking, what you need to bridge that gap, work on it, reach back, and then build a solid profile and get that EB1. I think it's worth the effort, because you're knocking out like some 20 years of uncertainty waiting for that green card by doing this.
Oh yeah, for sure. And whatever said and done, that's a huge amount of stress that you're taking for, a long period of time. Like if you can eliminate that with a focused approach just in a year or two, you should absolutely do that. I mean, that's of course coming back to the point of like, what your priorities are. If you want to continue to, have a life in the United States and, build a life here. If your idea is like, okay, I've worked for a few years and then go back to my home country, that's obviously a different story.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that.
So this completes category 1, which is visa type. And we're going to go to category 2, which is education. What are some ways that you can extend your time here if you don't get an H1B by pursuing another degree? First one, most default, basic one, another degree. If you're here on a bachelor's and you didn't get it, you want to do another bachelor's, go for it. If you want to do another master's, go for it. But one thing for you to understand is that if you have used your STEM and that OPT extension for one level of education, you cannot get it for that same level again. For example, if I've completed a master's degree, I've utilized my STEM, my 3-year STEM and my extension. And if I go ahead and do another master's degree, I will not be eligible for OPT again. If I do a PhD, I am eligible to get an OPT again. And what's crazy is an acquaintance of mine recently, he started his OPT after his master's.
Okay.
He was on it for like a month.
Okay.
And he went back to studying and he went back to F1.
Okay.
And then he finished that degree and he got another job. And he was under the impression that because he barely used up his OPT, which is 3 years, he can qualify for it again. But apparently not. Even if you've used 1 month out of that 36-month period that you're allotted, it counts as OPT is done. So be careful of that. If you're doing a master's and you're on F1, you stay on F1 until you graduate. As soon as you're done, your status is done. So you need to try to get your H1B in that 2 tries. And you're not allowed to work. You'll be a full-time student. And hopefully you knock out that lottery in that extra 1 or 2 tries that you get. And the other one is it's called Day 1 CPT. Right? It's a slightly gray area because there are some opportunities for this to go south because of the fact that if you don't pick a right university who knows what they're doing, and there's even a slightest degree of doubt in USCIS, you get flagged, right? A Day 1 CPT is that you're allowed to work and pursue an online or a remote degree, which gives you a CPT from day 1.
And CPT, for like those of you who don't know, like is an option where you can work full time for 40 hours a week, like a regular job. But typically CPT happens only like after you've completed like a single academic term or something along those lines in a master's degree or a PhD or something before you're eligible. But there are a few universities that provide a CPT option on day 1 where you attend classes only once, 1 week a month or 1 week in a couple of months or something along those lines. The issue being here is why this is a gray area. As far as the research I've gone through is that USCIS doesn't specifically state that giving a Day 1 CPT is illegal. That's the only reason why. And let's say you've done, let's say, a master's degree in data analytics. Now you're going and picking up a second master's in data analytics again. That is a big red flag for USCIS because they think like, why are you going and studying the same thing again? Obviously, you want to work. Like, it makes it look very obvious. But at the same time, let's say you're going and doing something like business administration, or that can be added like you're learning a new skill set as a part of your job. And, there's a gray area around that. There are folks that I know who have had no issues with their US visa interviews when they're on a Day 1 CPT. They've gone back to their home countries, come back with a new visa stamp and stuff like that. And there are folks who have had a lot of issues as well. So that's like, it's an iffy thing. There are companies as well that employ you on Day 1 CPT. But once again, based on the economic environment, especially right now, from what I've heard, is that a lot of companies are not comfortable with it. Amazon used to do it.
Not
now
anymore.
They don't anymore.
Yeah. A friend of mine he got a job offer. But when they found out that he was on a CPT after he accepted the job offer, they rescinded it. So
wow.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
There are a few reputed ones, universities that give this, that know what they're doing. It's not illegal. I have a friend who went to one in Kentucky, which is Campbellsville University. Cost, just to give you guys an idea of how much it costs, around $3,500 to $4,000 per quarter, per semester of 3 to 4 months. And they have semesters starting every couple of months. So you don't really have to wait for either a spring or a fall intake. They start every couple of months. So even if you've got you decide to keep this as a last option, your H1B is getting over on, say, Tuesday, and on Sunday you decide to go for this, you can email them and get it started pretty fast. Again, these are things for you to put in your back pocket. Do your due diligence. We don't want you to just follow this blindly and get blacklisted. Some universities are there that provide the service, and it's a little tough because after work, it's a university, right? They're not going to, if you go to the proper ones, they're going to expect you to finish your assignments. There will be lectures for you to attend. It's going to be like a proper school again, but with work, right? So don't assume that, hey, this is just a stopgap measure and you just screw around. If you're not meeting the grade, they could kick you out, and all that will just increase the number of red flags that USCIS will have when they're actually trying to do something against you. Like, oh, now we know for sure you're not actually invested in this because you flunked out in the first semester. So
exactly,
just trying to give you guys as much information so that you're all aware of what you're getting into.
And that's also a reason why we say this is one of the last options you should consider. There's other things that we have talked about earlier in the episode. This should be like literally the last thing. And again, this should be done only after you've consulted with an immigration lawyer, because they know what's best based on everybody's individual profile. And that's what it is.
So the next category is non-profit organization. Now, you must have seen the word cap. It's a capped H-1B, right? Basically, what that means is there's a certain number of limit to the number of visas they can grant in a year. But there's also non-profit cap-exempt H-1Bs, right? Basically, what that means is that certain organizations or areas have been deemed as non-profit or actually benefiting to society. So the government has actually said that those organizations can file for your H-1B at any time of the year. There's no limit to the number of cap exempt H-1Bs that you need to go through. You're not going to go through a lottery, nothing of that sort. For example, I have a non-profit. Sanjay is a good fit in that non-profit and he applies. I can file for his H-1B any time of the year. That's called a cap exempt H-1B. And not a lot of people look into this option because they just assume that non-profit means the pay is trashy. No, it's not like that. There are non-profits that have decent, well-paying jobs.
And one example would be, university systems.
Yep.
Like larger universities, they hire a lot of H-1Bs. Like you could go on h1bdata.info, type out different universities' name. You will find a lot of petitions from these universities, and they pay pretty decently. Like it's obviously not the best choice that you have, but you don't need to worry about getting picked in a lottery. It's not like a 17% chance. You can join at any time. I think the only issue would be that if you haven't been picked in an H-1B lottery, later on, if you want to move to a cap-based employer, you have to go through the lottery process.
Yes, that's the only drawback. You can't.
Yeah.
If at any point you say, hey, I want to work for that other company, you've got to go through the lottery. It's a nice temporary measure, but just be aware of this. And one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of people I know, when they get married to folks who have not done their degrees here, they're waiting, the spouse comes on an H4 and, they're just waiting for you to get your I-140 approved so that they can get an EAD, or they have to do a master's or something here for them to start working. This is actually a pretty decent avenue for you guys to look into. Find a nonprofit near you that's hiring. They can file for an H-1B any time of the year. Let them file for it. Get work experience. Your partner does not have to just sit at home for that 2 or 3 years while you sort out your I-140, or while she gets a degree done, or he gets a degree.
Yeah, and I want to specify why Rahul says it's because a large percentage of spouses who come on an H4 are mostly women, and it's absolutely frustrating. Prime example is myself. Like my wife, when we got married, she came from India and she was on an H4 visa, and it was very frustrating for her because she's had a career, working as a biomedical engineer, and she had to quit all of that and stay at home because there's no way for her to work. And the only option, even I wasn't aware of something like this, and we went the route of her picking up a master's degree on an F1 visa, which involved 2 to 3 years of like a lot of paperwork, admissions, money, like a lot of money, and now she's recently started working. So yeah, this is a great option for anybody who's listening who knows somebody who's sitting at home and is frustrated, not being able to work the cap exempt H1B.
So this also ties into the second option that I have for you guys that we found out. There's an organization called Open Avenues. I'd heard of this, but I got a little more insight into this organization, I think, a couple of days ago when I attended a webinar. So it's essentially started by, I think her name is Danielle, not 100% sure, but I think it is. So she and her dad, who's an immigration attorney, they started this essentially to help people who have not exhausted their H1B lottery attempts and they don't know what to do. So how this works is that this organization, Open Avenues, has a tie-up with around 10 to 12 universities where how it works is your company will nominate you as a candidate to Open Avenues. Open Avenues will look at your profile, see if you're a decent fit, and they'll hire you for about 4 to 5 hours a week. Now, what you're going to do is that you will be a mentor to different students who have not graduated yet. You will conduct workshops, you'll be a mentor, you'll spend that 5 to 6 hours a week guiding students who have not yet graduated. Because you're doing that, Open Avenues is able to file for a cap exempt H1B for you for 5 to 6 hours. And
5 to 6 hours a week.
And you get paid for that 5 to 6 hours. But because you have one cap exempt H1B filed with Open Avenues, your company, your main company that you're working for, who nominated you, they're allowed to file for a concurrent cap exempt H1B, allowing you to continue your same role or function that you were doing. It's pretty crazy, right?
Wow. So even if that's like a private employer, that's supposed to be.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes.
That's a loophole. Like it seems like
kind of. And I think I've seen that there are some people who've done it. The testimonials look pretty promising, and I like the business model. But the only thing that I had a problem with was how much it costs, because it costs the company $18,000.
Wow.
Right? And that's a one-time payment for a candidate. And this includes Open Avenues reviewing the documentation, filing for the paperwork, under premium processing and everything. And that's 18 grand. Once that's done and it's approved, the duration in which you are in this program, every semester or every quarter, you've got to pay around $3,600 to $3,800. So
it's almost like paying for like a college credit or something like that. And
if the company is sending a second candidate, it's going to cost them another $18,000. It's not like a one-time thing, right? If they send, I think this was one of the questions asked, if they send like 5, 6, they're like, the more the number, then we can talk about a potential discount or something like that. But as of now, it takes you 2 years to get it. That's 18 grand plus 3,800 into 4 into 2 for like 2 years. So that's quite a hefty investment that the company has to make on you. And from that 3,800, because these guys have to pay you for that 5 hours, right? A week. So from that 3,800 that the company pays, your hourly wage at the company, you'll get 5 hours worth of that from Open Avenues. I see staffing companies and consultancies being able to use this route, because it's very easy for them to structure their pay according to this, right? If they're paying 100,000 to someone and this is they're like, hey, we want to pay you 18,000 lesser, and instead of that, we're going to put this towards this. But for like a lot of mid to larger range companies where it's difficult to change the payroll structure like this, might cause a problem. But I'm excited to see
there's at least an option.
It's nice. I'm sure that if we can bring the price down a little bit, it might be an actual viable option for a lot of companies to look into, hopefully in the future. But if you want to do it, hey, I don't want to leave the US and I want to stay here no matter what it takes, this is an option for you. That $3,800 that you're spending, you will spend it on a day one CPT anyway. You can put it towards this if you'd like, and convince your company to go that extra route for you.
And it ties back to the having a good relationship with your employer.
Yes. The last one that I have is, took a leaf out of USCIS, is options if you lose your job moving to another country. Canadian immigration is a pretty exciting opportunity or an option for you guys to look into. Step on it, because the cutoff scores for your... So how it works is, I'll give you a quick overview, right? You've got to put in your profile into a pool of applicants based on your degree, your work experience, and everything else. You'll get a score. They conduct it's a lottery system there too, but in a much better way. They conduct it every 2 weeks or at least once a month. And they will, based on the pool of applicants, they'll do a certain number of... They'll pick a certain number of people based on your profile scores. So you could get picked in a day, you could get picked in a couple of months. It depends on your profile, and there are ways to make your profile better also. So if you get picked, you've got 3 months to submit your documents, and then it's a waiting game. They'll review it. They'll ask for some other extra documents and then approve. So it could take you between 2 to 2.5 years. Now the cutoff scores are increasing because everyone's realized that it's a great opportunity to move there. So if you're something that you're looking into or you're interested, don't waste any more time. Get into it, step on it, build your profile. It's not that difficult, not as complicated as an EB one. You don't need an attorney. You can do it by yourself. Step on it. It's a good option. Once you get your PR in about 2 years, you can live in Canada for around 3 years, come back as a Canadian citizen on a TN visa.
Maybe we should actually do an episode just entirely dedicated to that, like, because you've done this, right? You've done this.
Fun fact, I just got my PR card yesterday.
Yeah.
I applied for it in 2020. Yeah, it took me about 2 years and 6 months, 7 months, 2.5 years.
So we should definitely like go over in an episode just for this. That way, like, those of you who are interested in this option, it'd be useful
for sure. I think it is useful. The 3 years and the option back sounds tempting, and the fact that I got in 2.5 years without stepping into the country even once, and I've been in US for 7 years, and I'm barely close to getting my green card here, right?
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with having a plan B, right? Just keep it in your back pocket again. Use it when you have to. Only catch is that once you get your PR card, every 5 years, you need to spend 2 years there. Doesn't have to be consecutive, but in a 5-year time frame, you need to spend 2 years there. So that's some planning that you got.
At least it's a backup option.
Yeah, like, it's a great backup option. I think, if you want to, let's say you want to start a business, or you have an idea that, hey, you know what, I really want to pursue this while I work in this thing. Go to Canada, man. Do it. Taxes a little higher, but you've got that option. It doesn't work out. Hey, come back. It's not that difficult to go back and forth between Canada and US. Especially if you have a US degree.
And I have heard of folks who actually are Canadian permanent residents who live in Canada but work on an H-1B in the US. Yeah. They drive up and down across the border. They live in these border towns like Buffalo and like a couple of other places.
New Hampshire, Vancouver as well. Vermont.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Best of both worlds.
I don't know.
Because you can actually, it's funny. If you spend a night in Canada, it counts as a day. Even if you just go in the night, sleep for like 3-4 hours, come back in the morning to US to work, it counts as a day there.
Oh, wow.
Something like that. I read something like that. Then I was like, damn, that's crazy. Yeah,
we'll cover that in the Canada episode.
For
sure. Like, this requires a lot that deep dives.
We'll add that to the pipeline. It's funny, I was playing around with a chat GPT the other day, and I was like, give me a funny option that I should look into if I did not get my H-1B. They're like, move to Canada and pretend to be a moose.
A moose?
I think there's a lot of moose there. So that brings an end to my list.
And it is pretty exhaustive. There's a lot of stuff in there. So if you folks feel like you need to rewind and listen to some other portions, go ahead or check out our website as well. We'll be listing out all of the stuff there.
And a couple of things we're doing this time, just because this might help you. Because I know when you're in that fix, there's going to be a lot of stress on your plate. So we've tried to help out a little bit in that. We've got a little bit of a giveaway for this episode. We're going to be posting a Google form link either on the website or on our Instagram page, and when we make posts on other platforms. Fill that out, put in a city that you're living in or a city that you are maybe open to moving to, and we will send you a list of cap exempt H-1B employers who have filed a cap exempt visa in the last 3 years. Like, we've got that data pulled. We will send that to you. See if that helps. And we've also got a list of like maybe 3 or 4 universities, day one CPT universities for you to look into. And we've spoken to a friend of ours and gotten a list of documents that she needed to apply to these universities. So we'll put that in the slide pack. So not something that's going to solve your issues, but maybe something that can at least help you take a more informed decision, or maybe save you a couple of hours of work by yourself. So fill this out if you need it. If you don't want to do that, you want to reach out to us directly on Instagram or Twitter, please do so. We've got
and did we say it's free? It is free, by the way. Like,
we're not charging you guys for it. Oh my god.
It's just free information.
We just wanted to help out. That's why we're doing this episode. We know the stress. I got picked in 2020. It was one of the most stressful times of my life, because not only did I get picked, I'm in oil and gas, right? Oil decided to go
Uh-huh.
negative that year. So,
Wow.
so
Peak COVID.
I was in that funny spot where USCIS is processing my application and my company is having mass layoffs. I'm like, shit.
Oh my God.
And if I got laid off, I would have lost my student status also, because you get picked means you lost your student status, right? So I'm like, damn it, do I get... Like, it took 4 months because of COVID to wait for an approval, right? So we know the stress. I'm sure Sanjay's got his own. Oh my God, is this my first? Did you get picked in your first or second try?
I got picked in my first try.
Oh, okay. So Sanjay was in that 40% approval rate.
Yeah. But I did get an RFE for my renewal.
Okay.
At a time when I was employed by my same company and pretty much everything was similar. It was like a standard renewal. There's no change. And they said,
did they say you don't look like a model, Sanjay?
Well, they'd be right in that. But
again, we know the stress and we want to do whatever we can to help out. So either fill out that form whenever you see it, or just shoot us a DM on Instagram or Twitter, and we'll make sure that we get that data to you. The reason we are asking for this is because it's kind of it's a lot of effort to pull every city in US. So we'd rather do it.
Exactly.
We'd rather do it for the ones we know actually need it. So if we get like some 20, 30 cities or something, it's easier to pull it out rather than going city by city. There's no way to pull an entire state. I looked into that portal. You're more than welcome to also email us or set up a one-on-one call with either of us or both of us to talk through any of the options. So just get any more leads. We're more than happy to make time for you again.
Yep. And for those of you who don't know, our website is area51pod.com. You can email us on hello@area51pod.com. But yeah, what's our Instagram handle? Oh, never mind. Okay, it's the Area 51 podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. Our Instagram handle is the Area 51 podcast.
And so if you're interested in this information, slide into our DMs or give us a shout out, whatever it is, and we'd love to get back to you.
Thanks for tuning in, and if you've stayed with us till the very end, hope you guys found this useful. As always, we would highly appreciate your feedback. Let us know what you thought, and we'd be more than happy to incorporate that into our future episodes. And we'll see you guys for our next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.